Well, good morning. It's been a while. Welcome to Stories for the Cooped Up and Captive. Well, after a whole lot of consideration and precaution, last Monday, the Moth decided to return to live events. Unfortunately, at that exact time that I was supposed to be headed to Madison to tell stories, the Griswold farm had 2 cows in dystocia. So instead of telling stories, I was rolling around on a straw bedding pack behind a cow trying to extract a live calf. But I had a story queued up that I was kind of anxious to tell. The topic was reunions, and I had a reunion story that I just could not wait to tell. So I'm going to tell it to you instead of them. So I met Sheila Irene Barnes nigh on to 30 years ago. She was a raven-haired, fairly complected veterinary technician. She was the bastion of compassion, common sense, and hard work. At the time we met, she had been with her high school beau since they were both 14 years old. I was a greenhorn, brand new graduate of the University of Illinois College of Veterinary Medicine. I had just emigrated across the Cheddar Curtain, and I was trying to find my way in a new land. I was about to get married to my college flame. Now, Sheila practiced at a clinic that was just down the road from us, and she was the friend of a friend, so we would cross paths and she would come up as a topic of conversation. And every time she did, the conversation would end the same. You know, there is something about that Sheila Barnes. So, fast forward 15 years or so. A good friend of mine wrote a song that pretty much encapsulated my first marriage. The refrain was to the effect that if I'd shot her when I met her, I'd be out of jail by now. The only way that my first marriage was going to go till death do us part would have had me serving life in a maximum security prison. So, at 40 years old, I was a statistic, a divorced father of 2, once again looking for love the old-fashioned way on Fitness Singles and Match.com. Labor Day weekend, approximately 2009. There was an ass-kicking honky-tonk band playing at the Tyranina Brewing Company for an early show, and my buddy Joel Patterson was playing at the Harmony Bar in Madison late. I was looking for that special date. Well, as I was contemplating, midweek the phone rang. It was my friend Sarah Healy and her husband Ned. They were going on vacation on Sunday, but on Saturday, they figured they'd come out and join me for a beer at Tyranina, and maybe they would see if Sheila wanted to come along. At the very thought, my brains turned to scrambled eggs for the rest of that week. That felt like a month. It was all I could do to write my name on a rabies certificate or neuter a cat. So Saturday finally came around and I rifled through for my best flannel shirt, my wingtips, tried to act cool. I'm sure I failed miserably in that respect, but alas, Ned and Sarah showed up, and, as has become tradition, fashionably late, so did she. Dressed in denim from head to toe, looking like $1,000,000. We sat in the grass and talked for an hour and a half. The band could have played Purple Haze and set their guitars on fire, and I would have been oblivious. I was scared to death, but I finally made a move. I said, hey, does anybody want to go to Madison and do some swing dancing? Well, Ned and Sarah had to milk cows before they went on vacation the next day, and they were looking for an early evening. But they took one for the team. They knew that Sheila would not go without a chaperone. It was a little too far out of her wheelhouse. As a matter of fact, Sheila even headed to ride with Ned and Sarah in their van, but Ned kicked her out and made her ride with me. So she sat in the passenger seat of my '92 Subaru and started telling stories about her grandma working in the garden and her family. In 8 miles between the brewery and the Deerfield exit, my insides felt like warm butter. So we danced until the band played their encore. We talked until 4 o'clock in the morning. When I finally dropped her off back at her car, it took everything I had not to tell her that I loved her right then and there. Well, I managed to hold back for exactly a week. So we texted furiously for several days, and the following Sunday, after I took the kids to their mom's house, we went out to dinner. It seemed like minutes from the first kiss, but there was a barn full of her 4 horses, a house full of dogs, and 4 goats. Man, we were a team. I had this little song that I would sing to the cab of my truck at the mere sight of her little white car at the bottom of my driveway. Whoever got home first would start supper, feed horses, and clean stalls. She helped me get the kids to hockey games and tournaments and practices. We went to Austin, Texas and danced at Green Hall and the Broken Spoke. We body surfed on the Big Island of Hawaii. We went to Nashville, Lower Broad. 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, we were swing dancing to a band called the High Jivers. And then she left me. She said she had unfinished business. I cried like a baby. I prayed. I appealed to every mutual friend that we had. I split a mountain of firewood as therapy. Finally, on my way to an emergency at 1 o'clock in the morning, the radio played Mary Gauthier, When a Woman Goes Cold. So I fired up my profiles on Match.com again and went back to dating. In the year to follow, I met a lot of nice people, drank a lot of coffee, learned a lot about angles of photographs on profile pictures on dating websites, but not once did I ever have to fight off the urge to tell somebody that I loved them on the first date. So it was late September. I was running around the farm doing chores, doing yard work. I had all these little flower gardens. During certain times of the year there were phlox, there were lilacs and lilies. But mostly the burdocks and wolf thistles were attempting to make a coup. And as I headed up to feed the goats, there was this one little red rose that was peeking its way from around the broadleaves. I paused, carried on about my business, threw the goats some grain, went back to the house, foraged for some leftovers, got my clothes and coffee ready for the next week. And just as I was about to climb in the shower, I could not stop thinking about that one red rose. So I actually got dressed again, got my phone, went outside and took a picture. Now Sheila Barnes does absolutely nothing by accident. When she left, she took her horses, her socks, her underwear, her measuring spoons, and her KitchenAid mixer. She left one thing behind. It was a gray terry cloth robe hanging from an antique hook on my windowsill. I always loved the way it hung across her backside. And in weaker moments, I'd bury my nose in the collar and smell. In that dank bachelor pad, it still smelled like her climbing out of the shower. So as I drifted off, my phone pinged a text message. A message. How are you? At that moment, I had no idea how to let myself feel. And I sure as heck didn't know what words. So instead of any words, I sent her a picture of that one red rose. The next Sunday, we watched the sunset over the lake behind me, eating shrimp off the grill. And last Thursday, we're married 4 years. If all else fails, keep something